Hey y'all, it's Care. I am so excited because last night I finished my 100th book of 2020 and I didn't think I was gonna make it. I didn't think I was gonna get to this point this year. Last year in 2019, I read a total of 45 books, which was still amazing. Until that point, 45 books had been the most books I'd ever read in one year before, so then to turn around and more than double it this year, I am thrilled. It did take some dedication and willpower this year, but that's why I wanted to make this video all about how I did it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay out a few points of how I read 100 books in 2020. If you wanna take them as tips or advice, then feel free to do so. But I also know that everyone has different reading habits. We set different goals for ourselves, and what works for me might not necessarily work for you. But if you're curious about how I read so much this year and you're thinking that you want to increase your reading next year as well, then keep watching. So the very first thing I did on January 1st was I set a very clear reading goal for myself. This was kind of reasonable for me. I said that I want to read 100 books in 2020. I personally use the Goodreads tracking app, so I do all my ratings and reviews on there. I also do obviously rating and reviews here on my channel, but I keep track on a day-to-day basis like what I'm reading on Goodreads. So in setting that goal, I knew that was gonna mean that I was gonna have to read about 2 books a week this year, which is pretty doable for me. And then also in January, I went ahead and tried to get ahead of my goal, because there's nothing worse than setting that goal for yourself and then getting behind early and then feeling like you're drowning and you can't possibly catch up throughout the year. So I've had a really great reading month in January, which I know like that sounds like a dumb tip, like if you want to read more, then start reading more. But I do advise you to get ahead on your goal as early as possible so that if you do get behind a little bit, you don't feel as discouraged. Next, I got a library card, which I hadn't had a library card since I was a little girl, going to the library, checking out picture books and Junie B. Jones and whatnot. I got a library card, and as much as I'd like to say I read a lot of physical copies of library books this year, I really didn't. I probably read about 10, maybe 20, I really don't know. But where this library card really helped me out is with the Libby app, where I can download free audiobooks and ebooks on my phone. This is all completely free, and I really like reading stuff on my phone. I do like to listen to audiobooks. I really only listen to them in the car. I like commuting to and from work. I spend about 40 minutes total in the car every day, so I don't get that much reading done via audiobook. But what I really do like is I like reading along with audiobooks, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in a later tip here. The app that I use is called Libby, so if you go to your local library, get a library card, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have some sort of audiobook service that your library can recommend to you. You just download the app, type in your library card, and you can access all of these things for free on your phone. I had no idea about this before last year, so I always try to spread the word about that as much as possible. The third thing that I did is probably my favorite decision that I made this year. I canceled my HBO add-on to Hulu, to my Hulu account. And in place of that, I bought 2 bookish subscription services. The first one is Book of the Month. And if we're just talking about stats and numbers, my Book of the Month books didn't really make a dent in these 100 books that I read this year. But what it did do is it really helped me get out of reading slumps, because with Book of the Month, you can choose a brand new 2020 released book for pretty much half the price that you would pay if you were to go and just order it or buy it in a bookstore. And this helped me get out of so many reading slumps, because sometimes when I'm reading books that I've either been looking at on my shelves for a long time, or I'm reading books from the library, and sometimes I can get a little slumpy when I'm reading something that I'm not that excited about. I always try to read books I think I'm gonna like. I never sit down and think, let's read this book because I think it's gonna suck. I don't do that. But we all know that difference between reading a book we think we're gonna like and reading a book that is so highly anticipated that you're so excited for. So I think Book of the Month really helped me there. And the service has really been worth it for me this year, because I've gotten books from a lot of the months this year, and I've also gotten some add-ons. And I think out of all of those, there's only one that I've not read yet. And it's not even because I picked it up and put it down. I've just not picked it up yet. So that really helped me out. And then my very favorite subscription service is Scribd, which is an audiobook and ebook service, and they also offer a lot of other things like periodicals, magazines, really cool documents and PDFs you can go and look at, but I really just use it for the ebook option and some of the audiobooks sometimes. I thought pulling the blinds down was gonna make it better, but now I have lines all over me. Okay, we had to shift over a little bit because of the lighting, but where was I? Scribd. I love Scribd. I can read on my phone, I can read on my laptop at night, which is probably an unpopular opinion, but besides physical books, my favorite way to read is to read on my laptop, laying on my couch at night with all the lights out, just reading on my computer. That's probably horrible for my eyes. There's not a specific number that you can read each month before they cut you off, but if you're reading books that are like very newly released or they're really highly anticipated, you might get to read less books that month than if you're reading a lot of backlist blacklisted titles, if that makes sense. I don't really think I've figured out how their algorithm works, but I definitely read about 3 to 5 books from them every month. Oh, and I forgot to mention that those two book services combined cost the same amount that I was paying for my HBO add-on each month, and I don't even watch that much TV, so it made sense for me to invest in something that really is a hobby that I love to do, like reading, instead of having just yet another streaming service where I might watch one thing once a month on, you know? So it made sense for me. I'm not telling you to go do that if it doesn't work for you, but that really made sense for how my lifestyle is. The next thing I want to talk about is my very #1 tip. I should have put this first, but that's okay. But going back to the library app I was just talking about, if I am ever reading a physical book, I always type that book into my library app to see if there's an ebook option and to see if there's an audiobook option. If there's either one of those, then I will borrow it from the library on my app and I will read along at points in my day where I wouldn't be able to physically be reading my book. So say I'm reading The Night Circus, it's a Saturday morning, I'm laying on my couch, I've got plenty of time to read all day. Well, then when Sunday rolls around, I have to go somewhere. I've got to drive somewhere. It's like a 2-hour drive. You can listen to it in the car, and then when you get back from your trip, you're farther along in your book. Maybe I read on this all day long, but I'm starting to get sleepy, I want to go lay down. I put the book up, I go lay in the bed, pull it up on my phone, read 20 more pages before I fall asleep. You know, stuff like that you wouldn't think makes a difference, but it really, really does. This is my #1 thing that I started doing this year that really made me start to see a dramatic increase in the quantity of books that I was reading. Obviously, I don't recommend you do this if you don't like ebooks and you don't like audiobooks. I feel like I can already see these comments of like, I hate audiobooks or I hate ebooks. That's fine. Again, this video is what I did this year to help me read more, and that really, really, really helped me out. So even if a few people see this and think that's a really good idea, I've not tried that before, then it's worth it. Another thing that I started doing this year that I've not done in the past is setting timers for when I'm reading. I have a really, really, really short attention span, and that comes across with like how I'm always reading 10 books at one time. I feel like I can never stick to one book at a time. I just always will sit down, start reading, read 10 pages, and then start looking at my phone or get up and start walking around and doing something else. So if I have a very narrow window of time, then I will go ahead and set a timer and then like throw my phone across the room and sit there and read until the timer goes off. Now, of course, I don't do this if I've got like all day to read and I don't have like to run anywhere else, but this year I did have 2 part-time jobs at the same time, and I was working 7 days a week, and between all 7 of those days of the week I was working a little over 50 hours a week. So I've been really, really busy for the past 8-ish, 9-ish months. If I've got an hour between my 2 jobs, I'll come home, change, eat. Maybe I've got 40 minutes left. I'll set a 30-minute timer and sit there and read for 30 minutes. Which, now that I'm saying it like that, makes me sound like a drill sergeant or like this is really intense. No, it's just because if I don't do that, then I'll think, oh, I've just got 30 minutes. I'll sit and scroll on my phone, get on TikTok for half an hour. And actually, I could have been reading 25, 30 pages in my book. Also, I didn't have this written down, but speaking of setting timers, another thing I've started doing just very recently in the past few months is going to reading sprints with friends. So if you go on YouTube, type in reading sprints, they are so much fun. Basically, it's a group of people, everyone gets together, chats a little bit, and then someone sets a timer on the screen and you'll all read together for 20 minutes. Everyone's reading different books. It's completely silent. You all read and then the timer goes off. They unmute themselves on the YouTube video and start chatting again. Sometimes they're themed, sometimes they're with friends. They're just so much fun, and every time I go to a reading sprint, I feel like I get at least 80 to 100 pages read in my book. But I also have been socializing for a few hours and it's been really fun. So I really recommend doing that too if you've like seen reading sprints going around and you're not sure what they are. I'm really exposing myself with this last one because I think it actually might make me sound crazy, but another thing that I did this year was I completely separated out all of my read books from the books that I have not read. So this bookcase on the right over here, as well as the ones across the top that I'll show you here in a second, I have read all of those books. And then on my left bookcase, which you can't see over here, these are all the books that I've not read. And I also have a cart and another little bookshelf over here of my unread TBR. I would make it like this dramatic ceremony of like moving the book from the unread side of the bookshelf to the read side of the bookshelf after I finished it. And it like made it really fun for me. And I also think this is a really good way to get through your physical TBR. Maybe if you like still are reading a lot, but you feel like you're listening to a lot of audiobooks or checking a lot of books out from the library and you're not making a dent in the stack of books that you own, maybe separate out the read from the unread and then you can move them over once they're done. I think that's so fun. I've also seen people do it where they turn all of their unread books around so that the pages are facing out, and then once they've read the book, they get to flip around the spine. But if I spent money and bought these books, I kind of want the spines to be facing out because I love just sitting and looking at my bookshelves, and like I love arranging them by color and genre and everything. I just love seeing them all together. So that's not for me, but it's that same thought of there being some type of process from when you actually read one of your books physically. I think that wraps it up. I think I hit all my points there. One thing that I didn't say that is kind of obvious is that if you want to read more, you're just gonna have to start reading more. And I know that sounds sassy, but that's kind of a moment I had to have with myself midway through the year. Like I said earlier in the video, I got ahead really early, and then I kind of got slumpy around the summertime and had to have a meeting with myself like, you need to read more. And I was like, I know. And I was like, yeah, get on it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like this video if you did like it. Consider subscribing if you'd like to support me, because every time I get a notification that I have a new subscriber, it makes me glow from the inside out. I am so happy and thankful for each and every one of you. Let me know in the comments how many books you've read so far this year. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.